Every morning, a lion came to the window of a little girl who was no longer there, and no one knew why. Neighbors whispered, the police were baffled, and the silent predator stirred fear and suspicion. But when Casey's old journal was found, everything changed in the most unimaginable way. Just wait until you hear the twist that turned this mystery upside down and how, in the end, justice quietly prevailed. Every morning at exactly 6:47, just before the first blush of sunrise touched the sky over Westville, a silhouette would appear on the ridge. Heavy, slow, purposeful. An old lion emerged from the mist, his massive paws brushing through the dewy grass like he'd walked this same path 1,000 times before. He didn't wander. He didn't pace. He walked straight toward the same house, every single day. And when he reached it, he stopped at the same spot, a small patch of scorched grass just beneath a second-story window. There, he lowered himself onto his haunches with the deliberate grace of a creature that knew exactly what he was doing. And then he'd stare, not at the trees, not at the street, not at the yard, at that window. Still, silent, completely motionless, like he was waiting for someone to appear behind the glass. Ellen and Jim Huntington had lived in that house for 22 years. They'd seen their fair share of wildlife come through, raccoons, deer, even the occasional coyote, but never a lion, and certainly not one who returned like clockwork. At first, they assumed he'd escaped from a zoo, but when animal control got involved, the answer only deepened the mystery. The zoos accounted for every animal, the official said, frowning. And no sanctuary within 100 miles has reported anything missing, no tags, no chipped collar. This lion didn't escape. He just showed up. Police checked the property, installed motion detectors and trail cams, but the lion never strayed, never growled, never threatened. He only ever stared right into that second-floor window, the same window where, 2 years earlier, their granddaughter used to sleep. That's when the fear set in. "Why does he keep looking there?" Ellen whispered one morning, clutching her mug so tight her fingers trembled. She hadn't stepped inside that room since Casey passed. Her 9-year-old granddaughter had lost her battle with leukemia 2 winters ago, and this lion, this silent watcher, had started appearing 6 months later. No one could explain how he found the house, or why he returned with such consistency, or what he was hoping to see. Neighbors started whispering. Maybe he's a sign. Maybe something else. They didn't finish their sentences. They didn't have to. One morning, Jim had had enough. He grabbed his old shotgun, stepped out onto the porch, and fired 2 rounds into the air. The lion didn't flinch. Not even a twitch. He just kept looking up, unshaken, unafraid. He just stared. And somehow, that was more terrifying than if he'd roared. By the 3rd month, the lion had not missed a single morning. Every day, at 6:47, without fail, he appeared, sat, stared, and left. Not once did he arrive early. Not once did he come late. He was more precise than an alarm clock. That's when the Huntingtons decided to bring in someone who might offer real answers. Dr. Daniel Reeves, a wildlife biologist from the University of Oregon, arrived one overcast Tuesday with a van full of specialized equipment: infrared cameras, motion sensors, scent analyzers, audio recorders. He was calm, confident, skeptical. He had tracked big cats in the Rockies, spent nights in observation towers. He thought he'd seen it all, until he pressed play. The audio recording from the very first morning caught something none of them expected. "Is he purring?" Reeves asked, leaning in, adjusting the volume. A soft, low, rhythmic vibration echoed through the speakers. It wasn't a growl. It wasn't warning. It was gentle, steady, almost affectionate. Reeves replayed the clip 3 more times. He shook his head slowly, eyebrows raised. "I didn't think this was possible," he muttered. "This sound, this behavior, it's not aggression, it's not boredom." He paused, then looked up. "It's bonding. This is something we only see from adult males who are caring for their young, or mourning them." The room went silent. Jim, sitting in the corner with his hands clasped tight, suddenly stood. His voice was sharp. "What did you just say? Caring for a cub?" Everything changed in that moment. Theories collapsed, questions multiplied, and a quiet urgency took hold of the entire house. Law enforcement reopened past reports. Wildlife agents began combing through incident logs, and then something surfaced. A year earlier, in a remote stretch of the Oregon wilderness, a case of illegal hunting had been documented. A lioness had been found, lifeless. Tracks indicated she hadn't been alone. A smaller set of prints, cub-sized, had trailed away into the woods. The cub was never located. Search teams believed it wouldn't have survived. Harsh terrain, predators, no mother. But then they remembered something else, something small, something personal. Casey. She had always found injured animals, birds with bent wings, squirrels with broken paws. Once, she even brought home a barn owl with a missing feather roe, and she'd never told anyone. She'd tuck them under blankets, whisper to them, leave bits of food beneath the stairs. That's when Jim retrieved her old journal. The handwriting was wobbly, sweet, written in colored markers. Today, I hid the baby under the stairs. He growls like a kitten. I hope no one finds out. The entry was dated 2 weeks before Casey passed. They flipped the pages with shaking hands. More drawings, a tail, big paws, Fluffy written in glitter pen. She had rescued the cub, raised it in secret, fed it, protected it. And now he had returned. Not wild, not lost, but loyal. When the story broke, a lion returns every morning to the window of a little girl who's no longer there. The internet did what it always does. It spread like wildfire. News crews showed up. Journalists camped across the street. But they didn't stay long, because Westville had turned into something else entirely, a place of silence. People didn't come to film or ask questions. They came quietly. In the early morning hours, just after dawn, strangers would pull over on the roadside, step out of their cars, and stand across from the house in the mist. Some held flowers, some held photos of their own children. A few brought stuffed animals. They would walk up to the fence, kneel, and gently place them in the grass. They never knocked. They never lingered. And every morning, the lion was still there, as steady as the sunrise, as still as stone. But no matter how many people gathered, he didn't look at them, didn't react to the attention, the cameras, or the whispers. He only looked up at that second-floor window, the one where Casey had once sat cross-legged with a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, the one where she used to brush his fur with an old hairbrush, whispering made-up stories about the jungle, the one where she had first called him by name. Jasper. That was the name written in the margins of her journal. Dr. Reeves confirmed what the family already knew in their hearts. That lion isn't wild anymore, not fully. He was raised by a child, and he never forgot. His behavior, this is attachment. Deep, permanent, emotional bonding. It's rare, almost unheard of, but it's real. And then, one morning, Jasper didn't come. The family waited. So did the townspeople. A few stayed near the house longer than usual, but the hill remained empty. A week passed, then another. Finally, a group of researchers followed the path the lion had once walked. It took them deep into the forest, where the canopy thickened and the air fell still. That's where they found him, curled beneath an old pine, resting in peace. Next to him, something soft, weathered by time, but unmistakable. Casey's stuffed bear, the very one that had always sat at the foot of her bed. No one knew how it had gotten there. No one saw it moved. But somehow, it was there. Ellen wept quietly when they told her. He went to her, she whispered. Even if she wasn't there anymore, he waited. He hoped. The Huntington family placed a bronze plaque by the fence, where visitors still come. It reads, "Here lived Casey. She had the kindest heart, even for a lion." Today, the house isn't just a home. It's a reminder that love, real love, doesn't vanish with time. It doesn't end at distance, or even at death. It lingers. It returns every day, just like a lion to a window.